So Jesse Leach from Killswitch Engage, welcome back to Wall of Sound in Australia.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Good to be back.
So you've come back not long ago from a tour of Australia with Iron Maiden that included some out of town, very intimate gigs as well as the big arena shows. How was the trip for you guys down here?
Incredible. We all said it was one of our favorite tours in a long time. And a lot of that had to do with the side shows. They were incredible. The small shows were absolutely incredible. People were just ravenous. It was amazing. Some of the most energy fueled sing-alongs we've had in a long time, stage diving, like crowd interaction. And then obviously touring with Iron Maiden is incredible. But yeah, those side shows were phenomenal. It was great. Can't wait to get back.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'll ask you about that in due time. Um, So, in terms of when you come out to Australia, you originally, when you left Killswitch, quite a while ago now, you talked about the difficulty of being on the road. So, has there been things that have changed about how you tour and how you mentally prepare to come, really far across the Pacific to somewhere like Australia?
Oh yeah, it's night and day. It's completely different from the early days. I absolutely love touring. And I'd probably do it more than we do now. We have slowed down the touring machine. When I first rejoined the band with Disarm the Descent, we were on tour for a lot. Like it was 2 years pretty much nonstop, very little breaks. And now we space out the tours. We're a little older, and I think it's wise to cut back a bit so that way the energy stays high. We don't get burnt out. If you're out on the road for more than 4 weeks, you start to feel it a little bit. Especially if you're doing 3, 4 shows in a row, a day off, 3, 4 shows in a row, it gets taxing. So to keep it fresh and to keep it, everybody in good spirits, we do less. But I'm not at the bit. I haven't done anything since Australia, and I'm ready to go. Let's go. I love it. I think either you love it or you hate it. In the early days, I didn't quite love it. I don't think, number one, I had the confidence that I needed. And number two, I was a kid. I wasn't prepared for life on the road. But once you do it, the more you do it, you kind of fall in love with it. There's a real romance to the vagabond lifestyle of just picking up and moving on, and you get uh, you get cozy in those buses, especially even a bus. Like flying everywhere is a little hectic, which we do in Australia, but in the States and Europe, you get really attached to the bus life. So
Well, it's
yeah,
not the packing and unpacking, I imagine, that plane travel in Australia would be like.
yeah, much more relaxing in a bus for sure. You got your little cubby hole you can escape to.
Oh, great. So the new album, This Consequence, has a lot of stuff going on that, when I was listening to it and getting it ready for review, there's some sonic stuff that stretches Killswitch into some slightly different directions. You've got some real death metal stuff happening on a few songs. There's a bit more thrash on The Fall of Us. Discordant Nation is a little bit more hardcore and old school in that way. So I suppose for you as vocalist, how do you prepare lyrics for such a broad range of riffs?
It just came out of me, man. Honestly, it's part of the process. I'm inspired by what I'm hearing, and then I jot down ideas, and then it starts to take shape. So a lot of it, majority of it, is inspired by what I'm hearing. So those guys delivered, a diverse batch of songs, and I love it. I love a lot of the thrash and hardcore and death metal. I love that stuff because to me, it's like at this stage in the game, we've been a band for so long. Bands tend to slow down. We want to do the opposite. With this record, we really turned it up, and I think it's necessary because of where we are in the world right now. Like aggression is palatable, frustration, anger. Like I want to say post-COVID world we're living in, there is a real bubbling undercurrent of frustration and anger that I just tapped into. That's what it was observation and then sort of self-reflection, stuff that I'd sort of been, I guess, suppressing really. And when it came time to what do I have to say, I really tapped into that anger and frustration. So it goes along with the sounds that were given to me. So it just sort of happened naturally.
Yeah, it's a pretty aggressive record all the way through. One of my favorites is actually The Aftermath. And it's been nearly 5 years, like you alluded to the pandemic and things like that. So, I mean, that's sort of quite a song about dealing with things and then coming out the other side. So, what impact do you hope that song will have on fans?
That we're all in this together. We all went through something, and you could apply that song to a relationship. You can apply it to a country in wartime, rebuilding from the ashes. It's happening all over the world. It's a common theme I think we could all relate to, but the pandemic was a global event. So unfortunately, it served very much so to divide a lot of people in very ugly ways. But I'm seeing it as something now that we're recovering, sort of moving through our global PTSD together. It should serve as something to unify us. We have so much more in common as a human race than we do differences. And for me, it's all about separation from that divisiveness that's used as a means to control and keep people at each other's throats. So that way, the powers that be can sort of pull the strings on us and sort of do what they want to do and get away with it because we're so distracted. So to me, it's really about that message of wake up, realize the power that we have, the commonalities we have, and maybe I don't know, work together a little bit to make the world a better place. Like crazy idea. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Just to this righteous anger that has a mark. I'm aiming for people's hearts. I'm aiming for people's compassion to ignite that within them to realize that the power's in our hands. It's really just on us right now. We are the majority. The common people are the majority of this world, and we can make very big drastic changes for the better if we want to.
Yeah, and I think that's a sensational message to be spreading through, particularly through metal, where people can be quite divided between different subgenres and things. And I mean, Killswitch is a band that brings a lot of different elements to better as together, as we've already discussed. Um, the song I believe as well is pretty hopeful. What's the story behind that particular song?
Well, it was the one message I wanted to get across more than anything was just you can't lose faith, you can't lose hope. The power that we have in our minds when we manifest things, when we say things are going to be okay. I had certain artists echoing in my head. I think of early U2, Joshua Tree era, the streets have no name with or without you. That soulful, beautiful U2 that was still very much connected to the people, I think, before they sort of hit a bit of a disconnect in their career and became rock stars, if you will. And then I think of, Bob Marley, don't worry about a thing. Every little thing's going to be all right. Like a message like that, I was like, that's what I want to deliver. I want to instill hope in people's hearts. And I want them to hear somebody tell them it's going to be all right. Like it's going to be okay. Things are going to get better. Something as simple as that resonates because it's resonated with me in music that I like. When I'm in a certain mood and I put on The Clash or, like I said, Bob Marley or something with a positive message, sometimes you just need to hear it. Like it's gonna be all right. So that's what it is to me. It's a call to arms to like come together, push through this. We're bound for better days. You go through the darkness and you come out the other side and there is going to be light. That's the way I see it. That's what I believe in. And that's what I'm trying to sort of inject into our message, even through the angry songs. It's about empowerment. It's about self-realization. It's about compassion. All of those things are woven through, but I believe is a very blatant positive message of upliftment.
Yeah, and it comes across really well through the album. Like you said, there is certainly some really aggressive parts, but then there's moments in the aftermath, and I believe in some other songs that have that much more hopeful thing that I think, from a fan's perspective, has become a bit of a trademark of the more recent since you returned Killswitch Engage, where it is this hopeful message about mental health and togetherness and standing up for yourself and being, the agent of your own destiny.
That's what it's all about, my friend. And I think that comes from my roots in hardcore and punk. It was the first music that spoke to me, like when I talk to people about music, it's like you listen to what you were sort of raised with to a certain point, or what your older brother or your older sister listens to. And then there's a point in your life when you sort of own your own music. You're like, this is me. I identify with this. And that was hardcore music. And a lot of those bands I listened to growing up were positive message. It was all about, the Bad Brains, positive mental attitude, PMA. You had, Sick of It All was a lot of self empowerment and, anti-establishment, mainstream society. And you just felt like there was a belonging there. So to me, it's not just music, it's a culture that's embedded in me. And that positivity, that self-empowerment, that do it yourself. Like, don't sit around and wait for someone to create a change. You do it. Don't wait for someone to put your band on a show. Make a show, rent out a hall, and like put it on yourself. So that mentality, that culture is deeply embedded in the roots of Killswitch Engage, and especially for me, I'm a child of hardcore, so I can't help but put that message in there because it's what I feel in the deepest depths of my soul. It's this aggressive positivity.
Yeah, I think aggressive positivity is a great way to put it. So where does Bob Marley sort of fit into that? Because I'm a bit of a Bob Marley fan as well, and that, it sometimes clashes with, listening to lots of really heavy music and punk and hardcore as well as like, all the way to black metal and things like that. But then, Three Little Birds is an awesome song in terms of just
Yeah.
changing your mood.
Well, Bob Marley, I think, has its impact. You can see it blatantly. I mean, even in Max Cavalera, he talks about Bob, that Rasta thing, Bad Brains. It's found its way into the culture, New York hardcore, or even British punk. You had Don Letts, who was the DJ. So if you went to go see Billy Idol in the early years with his band, Generation X, or if you went to see the Sex Pistols or early versions of the Clash, you had Don Letts, this guy behind the controls, playing reggae music. So that reggae music is really tied in from the early late, punk rock in the 70s, and then it made its way into hardcore. So to me, and even in the 90s here in the States, like if you were into hardcore, you were probably into hip hop too, because it
Mm,
was music, it was street music. And that's what I was raised on. So to me, it was all about music done by the people for the people. And reggae music is exactly that. It stands on its own. And for some people, it's a really like spiritual religious thing. So there's a fervorness, there's a really powerful message that people would live and die for, and I'm super attracted to that sort of fervor because it's, aside from the sort of spiritual aspect of Rastafari, the messages on the whole were about unification. They were about embracing love and compassion and, having a even into what you eat or how you speak, the ITEL diet, the changing of the lingo, all of that to me spoke to me because it was just so unique, just like 90s hip hop, just like 90s hardcore. It kind of all just meshed together. And that's just what I was seeing it. I was raised with it. I
mm.
would go to radio shows. I would go to see a hip hop show. I would go to a hardcore show. It was something I was doing on a weekly basis in the mid 90s. So it's just my influences are just on my so Bob Marley, yeah, he's beloved by many. And
Absolutely.
his message affected the entire globe, up until the 80s. He was one of the largest acts in the world. And his resonance is still in the fabric of a lot of bands.
Oh, absolutely. Um, so since you've returned to Killswitch as well, just to change tack a little bit, the sets have always featured both new and older stuff, stretching back to your early days and the breakthrough with Alive or Just Breathing, as well as you doing Howard era songs as well as new stuff. Um, which songs from this consequence do you think will be a permanent part of the set list, even beyond this album cycle?
I mean, I can make a guess, but it's really up to the audience. I think, when you test out certain songs, and the plan is to sort of come to the forefront with 5 or 6 ready to go that will sort of mix in and out of the set. But it's going to be a conscious effort to put much more new material than we usually do on an album cycle because this album just feels like it needs it. It feels like it's sort of turning over a new leaf, a new chapter for us. If I were to venture a guess, I would say Aftermath is a no-brainer. That will definitely be in the set. I think Forever Aligned, based on the response we've already had, I believe will be one of those I Am Broken to Always kind of songs, I think. Um, and then for me, like personally, I would love to include Broken Glass. It's short, it's crazy, it's different.
Mm,
Um, Discordant Nation would be one I'd really like to put in there as well. But again, we might test the waters and see how the audience reacts. If there's a really positive reaction, people singing along and really digging on it, that's kind of when we know we've got something we got to keep in the set for a while. So I'm curious to see how that pans out and also just stoked to play new material.
Yeah, it'd be nice after because it's been such a long time since Atonement to bring in some new songs and try some different stuff.
Yes, can't wait.
And you've also played, the hometown gig late last year, celebrating the anniversary of the band. Do you ever pause and look back and realize what you've achieved and how many bands that are influenced by Killswitch engage?
I mean, I think about it, but I don't really dwell on it or reflect on it heavily. I think it's nice to acknowledge it and be grateful for it, but to sort of spend any more time on that to me is useless. It's I'm all about moving forward and just pushing forward, and I'm excited to continue to develop as an artist. I'm excited to continue to develop as a band, or even just as a vocalist, like still training, still trying to get better. So looking back in hindsight and sort of appreciating where we've come from is great, but I don't linger very long in that thought process.
Yeah, fair enough. And the last tour you were in Australia on support of Iron Maiden. Could we expect you to perhaps appear on festivals down here, or are you looking at a headliner?
We'd like to
Hopefully not too
come
long
back.
away. Yeah.
I think we'd like to come back for a proper headline. And I'm assuming since we're pretty booked solid for next year, probably 2026. But I think it's well overdue for us to come and do some headline and stuff. But if the festival is a right fit and it's it feels good, we would definitely do that too. But in my heart of hearts, I feel like, especially with this album cycle, headlining is the way to go. We've done all the supports, we've done festivals. I think headlining is the way to go.
Well, it gives you the chance to play lots of these new songs as well and try them out for Aussie audiences.
Exactly. And Aussie audiences are so much fun. So I'm sure it would be great.
Well, we're going to love to have you back when the time's right, even if it is 2026. We'll wait patiently. Um, could you sum up the new record in 3 words?
3 words? Oh man. Hmm. Passionate soul metal.
I love it.
Uh,
I love it. That certainly comes through. Like I said, the diversity of the music and things, but also your approach to lyrics, I think, is really going to hit a nerve with a lot of people. And Killswitch, to their credit, you guys have never really gone away, even if you have slowed touring, as you said before. And I think it's really exciting for fans to have that constant presence, but also, as you mentioned before, trying to get better, trying to challenge yourselves. And certainly, you're a band that strike me as it's actually really difficult to pigeonhole you somewhere in terms of scene because you really are just a metal band at this point in time.
love that. More of that, please. Thank you.
Well, the
Yeah,
review
I
will
think
be.
I think that just, we grew out of the labels. I think that, metalcore had its time when it was a relevant tag to put on a band, but to me it just feels like it's just not quite that important anymore.
Well, metalcore ends up meaning a lot of different things now with a lot of electronic elements and all sorts of things. But
You could subgenre metalcore now, like it can
yeah,
become
yeah,
its own
absolutely.
thing. Like it's such a vast sort of bastardized term. I don't what does it even mean anymore? I don't know. Because you have, like you said, like a band that sounds like this way over here on this spectrum, and then a band that sounds like this. Yeah, what is it even anymore? I don't know. It's kind of a tired phrase.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason I haven't used it. But you guys, obviously have inspired a lot of people, inspired both bands and fans around the world. So I really appreciate your time. It's morning for us, obviously later in the day for you. But really looking forward to not only sharing the album with everyone, but seeing you guys back down here in the not too
Yeah,
distant future.
thank you. And I can't wait. Can't wait to get back. I love it over there.